Keynes, in his General Theory, published in 1936, laid the foundations of modern macroeconomics. The concept of consumption function plays an important role in Keynes' theory of income and employment. Keynes mentioned several subjective and objective factors which determine consumption of a society. However, according to Keynes, all the factors in the current level of income that determine the consumption of an individual and also of society. Since Keynes laid stress on the absolute size of current income as a determinant of consumption, his theory of consumption is also known as absolute income theory of consumption. Let us now try and understand the concept of consumption function. As the demand for a good depends upon its price, similarly, consumption of a community depends upon the level of income. In other words, consumption is a function of income. The consumption function relates the amount of consumption to the level of income. When the income of a community rises, consumption also rises. How much consumption rises in response to a given increase in income depends upon the marginal propensity to consume, or in short, MPC. It should be borne in mind that the consumption function is the whole schedule which describes the amounts of consumption at various levels of income. Consumption function should be carefully distinguished from the amount of consumption. By consumption function, we mean the whole schedule which shows consumption at various levels of income, whereas amount of consumption means the amount consumed at a specific level of income. Such a schedule is given in the table below, which reflects the consumption function of a community. That is, it indicates how the amount of consumption changes in response to the changes in income. For the schedule given in the figure, it will be seen that at the level of income equal to rupees 1200 crore, the amount of consumption is rupees 1090 crores. As the national income increases to 1500 rupees crores, the amount of consumption rises to 1300 crores. Thus, with a given consumption function, amount of consumption is different at different levels of income. The schedule of consumption function in the table or the figure below reveals an important fact that when income rises, consumption also rises, but not as much as the income. This fact about consumption function was emphasized by Keynes, who first of all evolved the concept of consumption function. The reason why consumption rises less than income is that a part of the increment in income is saved. Therefore, we see that when income increases from 1000 rupee crores to 1100 crores, the amount of consumption rises from 950 crores to 1020 crores. Thus, with the increase in income by 100 crore, consumption rises by 70 crores. The remaining 30 crores are saved. Similarly, when income rises from 1100 crores to 1200 crores, the amount of consumption increases from 1020 to 1090 crores. Here also, as a result of increase in income by 100 crores, the amount of consumption has risen by 70 crores and the remaining 30 crores have been saved. The same applies to further increases in income and consumption. We shall see later that Keynes based his theory of multiplier on the proposition that consumption increases less than income, and this theory of multiplier occupies an important place in macroeconomics. In the Keynesian consumption function given in the table, while marginal propensity to consume, that is delta C divided by delta Y, remains constant at 0.70, average propensity to consume, that is C upon Y, is falling with the increase in income. It should be noted that Keynesian consumption function given in the table is linear as marginal propensity to consume, which measures the slope, that is delta C upon delta Y, of the consumption function curve is constant. It is noteworthy that while marginal propensity to consume, that is delta C upon delta Y, in the consumption function is constant, average propensity to consume, that is C upon Y, falls with increase in the national income. The fall in the average propensity to consume with the increase in income has an important implication that increase in consumption is not proportional to increase in income. Besides, in Keynesian consumption function, marginal propensity to consume is less than average propensity to consume at various levels of income. Consumption demand depends upon income and propensity to consume. Propensity to consume depends upon various factors such as price level, interest rate, stock of wealth, and several subjective factors. Since Keynes was concerned with short-run consumption function, he assumed price level, interest rate, stock of wealth constant in his theory of consumption. Thus, with these factors being assumed constant in the short run, Keynesian consumption function considers consumption as a function of current income. Therefore, C is equal to Fy, which means that consumption is a function of current income. In a specific form, Keynesian linear consumption function can be written as C is equal to A plus By, where A and B are constants, while A is intercept term of the consumption function, B stands for the slope of the consumption function and therefore represents marginal propensity to consume, and Y represents the level of current income. Keynesian consumption function C is equal to A plus By has been depicted by C dash curve in the figure, in which along the x-axis national income and along the y-axis the amount of consumption are measured. In this figure, a line OZ making 45-degree angle with the x-axis has been drawn. Because line OZ makes 45-degree angle with the x-axis, every point on it is equidistant from both the x-axis and y-axis. Therefore, if consumption function curve coincides with 45-degree line OZ, it would imply that the amount of consumption is equal to the income at every level of income. In this case, with the increase in income, consumption would also increase by the same amount. As has been said above, in actual practice, consumption increases less than the increase in income. Therefore, in actual practice, the curve depicting the consumption function will deviate from the 45-degree line. If we represent the above consumption schedule by a curve, we would get the propensity to consume curves such as C dash in the figure given below. Consumption function curve C dash deviates from the 45-degree line OZ, as is visible in the figure. At lower levels of income, the consumption function curve C dash lies above the OZ line, signifying that these lower levels of income consumption is greater than the income. It is so because at lower levels of income, a nation may draw upon its accumulated savings to maintain its consumption standard, or it may borrow from abroad. As income increases, consumption also increases, and at the national income level OY, consumption is equal to income. Beyond this, with the increase in income, consumption increases but less than the increase in income, and therefore consumption function curve C dash lies below the 45-degree line OZ An important point to be noted here is that beyond the level of income OY, the gap between consumption and income is widening. The difference between consumption and income represents saving. Therefore, with the increase in income, saving gap widens, and as we shall see later, this has a significant implication in macroeconomics. It is useful to point out here that when the consumption function of a community changes, the whole consumption function curve changes or shifts. When propensity to consume increases, it means that any given level of income more is consumed than before. Therefore, as a result of increase in propensity to consume of the community, the whole consumption function curve shifts upward, as has been shown in the figure by C-C curve. On the contrary, when the propensity to consume of the community decreases, the whole consumption function curve shifts downwards, signifying that at any given level of income, less is consumed than before. Let us now understand the savings function. Like mentioned during the consumption function, consumption increases as income increases, but less than the rise in income. Let us now understand what happens to savings when income increases. Saving is defined as the part of income which is not consumed, because disposable income is either consumed or saved. Therefore, Y is equal to C plus S, that is to say that income is equal to consumption plus savings. Therefore, savings is equal to Y minus C, that is, savings is equal to income minus consumption. Income here refers to the disposable income. Like consumption, saving is also a function of income. The saving function can be written as S is equal to Fy, that is, S is a function of Y. Saving function is a counterpart of the consumption function. Therefore, given a particular consumption function, we can derive the corresponding saving function. Let us take the Keynesian consumption, that is C is equal to A plus By. We can derive saving function corresponding to it, which gives us the equation S is equal to minus A plus 1 minus By. It is to be noted here that 1 minus B in the function is the value of marginal propensity to save, where B is the value of marginal propensity to consume. Let us give a numerical example. Suppose the consumption function is given as C is equal to 150 plus 0.8 Y, S is equal to Y minus C. Substituting the given consumption function for C, we have S is equal to Y minus 150 minus 0.8 Y, which will finally give us the equation S is equal to minus 150 plus 0.20 Y. It is to be noted that 0.20 represents marginal propensity to save. It also follows from the above that the sum of marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save is equal to 1. Therefore, 0.8 plus 0.2 is equal to 1. Let us now understand what is average propensity to save and marginal propensity to save. Average propensity to save is an important relationship between income and saving, and it is described by the concept of average propensity to save. It is the proportion of disposable income that is saved, not consumed. It is given as a ratio between savings and disposable income. Therefore, APS is equal to S upon Y. Like the average propensity to consume, average propensity to save also generally varies as income increases. As seen above, average propensity to consume falls as income increases. This implies that average propensity to save will increase as income increases. Coming over to the concept of marginal propensity to save, whereas average propensity to save indicates the proportion of income that is saved, marginal propensity to save represents how much of the additional disposable income is devoted to saving. The marginal propensity to save is therefore change in saving induced by a change in the disposable income. It is given by the ratio delta S upon delta Y, where delta represents change. Since the additional income is either consumed or saved, the sum of marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save is equal to 1. In the figure, we have drawn the saving function curve SS in the panel at the bottom. The saving function curve SS shows the gap between the consumption curve CC and the income curve OZ in the upper panel of the figure. It will be seen that up to income level OY1, consumption exceeds income, that is, there is dis-saving. Beyond income level OY1, there is positive saving. It is worth mentioning that as average propensity to consume falls with the increase in income in the upper panel, average propensity to save rises as income increases. Thus, in the figure, with the increase in income, not only the absolute amount of saving increases, the average propensity to save also increases. Since Keynes laid stress on the absolute size of current income as a determinant of consumption, his theory of consumption is also known as absolute income theory of consumption. While Keynes recognized that many subjective and objective factors, including interest rate and wealth, influenced the level of consumption expenditure, he emphasized that it is the current level of income on which the consumption spending of an individual and the society mainly depends. Let us now see what Keynes' psychological law of consumption is. Keynes put forward a psychological law of consumption according to which, as income increases, consumption increases, but not by as much as the increase in income. In other words, marginal propensity to consume is less than 1 but greater than 0. That is, it lies between 0 and 1. This implies that out of an increment in income, a part is consumed and a part is saved. Keynes' consumption theory has 3 features. First, he suggests that consumption expenditure depends mainly on absolute income of the current period. That is, consumption is a positive function of the absolute level of current income. The more income in a period one has, the more is likely to be his consumption expenditure in that period. In other words, in any period, the rich people tend to consume more than the poor people do. Secondly, he propounds a psychological law of consumption, according to which marginal propensity to consume is less than 1 but greater than 0. Thirdly, Keynes points out that consumption expenditure does not have a proportional relationship with income. According to him, as income increases, a smaller proportion of income is consumed. The proportion of consumption to income is called average propensity to consume. Thus, the third property of Keynes' consumption function is that average propensity to consume falls as income increases. The behavior of consumption expenditure as perceived by Keynes implies that the marginal propensity to consume is less than average propensity to consume. This is because as income increases, consumption does not rise proportionately, and as income falls, consumption does not fall proportionately. This is because people protect their consumption standards by not reducing their consumption proportionately to the reduction in their income. Implication of the proposition that marginal propensity to consume is less than average propensity to consume as income increases is that the ratio of consumption demand to income falls. This can be seen in the figure where the slope of consumption function curve is marginal propensity to consume, which remains constant, and the slope of the lines such as OA and OB from the origin to the point A and B on the consumption function line C measures average propensity to consume, that is, ratio C upon Y at these points is falling, showing that consumption demand does not increase proportionately to increase in national income. In the figure, we have also seen a linear consumption function with an intercept term. In this form of the linear consumption function, though marginal propensity to consume is constant, average propensity to consume is declining with the increase in income as indicated by the slopes of lines OA and OB at levels of income Y1 and Y2 respectively. The straight line OB drawn from the origin indicates average propensity to consume at higher income level Y2, which has a relatively less slope than the straight line OA drawn from the origin to point A at lower income level Y1. The decline in average propensity to consume as the income increases implies that the proportion of income that is saved increases with the increase in national income of the country. This result also follows from the studies of family budgets of various families at different income levels. The fraction of income spent on consumption by the rich families is lower than that of poor families. In other words, the rich families save a higher proportion of their incomes as compared to the poor families. Let us quickly look at the main features of Keynes' consumption function. First, absolute level of current income is the important factor that determines consumption of the community. Increase in national income causes an increase in consumption. On the other hand, classical economists thought that it was the rate of interest that primarily determined saving and consumption of the community. A rise in rate of interest induces the people to save more and thus to reduce their level of consumption. According to Keynes, though rate of interest is one of the factors that determine consumption of community, he did not consider it a very important determinant of it. Second feature of Keynes' consumption function is that marginal propensity to consume is less than 1 but greater than 0. As has been explained, the feature of Keynes' consumption function that marginal propensity to consume is less than 1 is known as Keynes' psychological law of consumption. According to this law, as income increases, consumption increases, but not as much as the increase in income. Third feature, in Keynes' consumption function, namely C is equal to A plus BY, as income increases, average propensity to consume falls. Keynes was of the view that rich people relatively save a higher proportion of their income, so that at higher level of income, average propensity to consume, that is, proportion of total consumption to national income falls as national income rises. Fourth important feature of the consumption function as put forward by Keynes is that it remains stable in the short run. Consumption function depends upon various institutional factors such as distribution of income and wealth and psychological factors. Since there cannot be much change in these institutional and psychological factors, the consumption function remains stable in the short run.